Martin Early faces the longest, the toughest stage of the Kellogg's Tour today, knowing that if he wants to win, he'll have to drop the new professional Remick Stumpf somewhere between Birmingham and Cardiff. Stumpf has shown that he's the man for the sprint finish. 2 firsts and a second on the 3 stages so far, the latest win on the line in Birmingham yesterday. With a 20-second time bonus available to the stage winner in Westminster tomorrow, there are others hoping to carve a chance on today's hills. So who will wear the yellow jersey tonight?
I think that's an impossible question to answer because there's just so many riders there that are within a minute and a half, so it's just impossible.
Early is wearing the yellow jersey.
I'm not saying. Martin Early.
Martin Early must be pretty confident. He's riding well, so it'll be difficult to take the jersey off him.
And a surprise start to the day after only 35 miles. Sean Kelly in the lead on the second climb of the day at Winch Inn. His lead at the moment is up to 1 minute and 13 seconds, and this has to be said, it is a surprise. Earlier, the first climb of the day was Romsley Hill. Sean Kelly was the winner there from Gary Baker and Simon Cope. And almost certainly now Kelly racing towards his first ever King of the Mountains title in this event. Lovely crowd out here in the Malvern Hills, and Sean Kelly pedalling nicely clear of the field, taking again maximum points on today's stage in the mountains. Here's the field lower down the slope, and beginning the sprint for the second place at the top of the hill. Martin Early in the yellow jersey going for it, and looks like Early going clear of Nick Barnes here in the sprint for second place. So Early gets that. The PDM riders from Ireland first and second, Nick Barnes third, Luc Leblanc is fourth, and Jonas Koom is there in 5th place. Well, once we're through Colwall, Sean Kelly decides to wait for the rest of the field. His job done, and this is Kim Anderson bringing the field up.
Yeah, well, I think that was a strange move by Kelly, probably trying to intimidate everybody else. The team isn't too strong in the hilly areas. We go to the back of the field here, and Steve Jones just having a quick consultation with the doctor.
So Steve Jones there as we go now to Hereford and the TV time sprint in the narrow streets of the city. An enormous crowd. Nick Barnes leads. Walsham's gone. Mark Walsham, who was behind Nick Barnes, the leader of the TV time sprint competition, has gone down, and that has given the sprint now to Nick Barnes, Walsham's closest contender for the white leader's jersey. And so Nick Barnes gets the 5 points, and Walsham will not score. There's the result. Van der Hulst second, Camarillo third. Let's have a look at that again. Walsham in second place here. Oh my goodness me, he went down with a wallop. Hits the barriers. So back up with the race now. This is Nico Verhoeven, who's gone out in front, just attempted to see who's willing to follow. The whole field is back together, and the good news, by the way, is Walsham also is coming back up to the race, so he's not so badly hurt. So we're on the start of the third climb of the day now at King's Thorn, and the sun's shining wonderfully. Robert Miller's coming up. Robert Miller's coming up. He's gone straight past.
Well, as Nico Verhoeven was looking back there, Robert Miller came straight up to him. I think Verhoeven will have to try and get onto Robert Miller's wheel here. Obviously, a little bit of intimidation by the PDM team. The team isn't too strong on the hilly climbs for today. And what I think Kelly was doing earlier on was trying to intimidate the rest of the field to show just how strong the PDMs were doing that. And there, Nico Verhoeven's done the same, being joined by Robert Miller. And there is Mario Gianetti just jumping away, probably to try and bridge the gap.
Well, Gianetti, first time we've seen him in the real action this week, but last year he was the King of the Mountains in the Kellogg's Tour. And quite honestly, if Gianetti contacts Robert Miller, who's just about a minute ahead of him on the road, then that's going to be trouble for Sean Kelly and the man in yellow, Martin Early. And Paul, it looks as though neither are countering the 2 most dangerous moves we've seen for a week.
Problem is, they've only got 5-man teams in the Kellogg's Tour this year, and it's very difficult to control the race. They don't really know what to do. At the moment, Robert Miller knows exactly what to do, and that's to get to the front, get his head down and get on with the job.
Well, Miller's facing a long way, but remember the Tour de France this year when he went across the Pyrenees with Pedro Delgado and Charlie Motte, and at the end of that long day in the mountains, he won the stage. At the moment, the top of King's Thorn Hill is a long way below the climb of the Col de Tourmalet down in southern France, while the riders behind here are thinking of the 4th place finish over the top of the climb. Shouts there for Sean Kelly in the white jersey. A few more points here should be enough to confirm him as leader and winner of that competition. The man in red on the far side in their ever-ready colours, well, that is Gary Baker, who was up on the first climb today. So Kelly winding up the pace. Baker falling back a little bit. This is Luc Leblanc in the white behind Kelly, and the yellow jersey of Early also challenging too. But there's nobody going to stop Sean Kelly. There he was in 4th place behind the 3 breakaways, and Gary Baker got 5th. Well, here's Gianetti still chasing his way up to Robert Miller and Nico Verhoeven. Verhoeven, of course, not working at all, always riding in 2nd place. And Gianetti has now contacted Robert Miller, and we've got the 2 top climbers together. 3 minutes 50 seconds. They have no choice now but to go for it. And Robert Miller, Paul, seems to be doing just that.
Well, that's a good help for Miller, but as we go back here to Mark Walsham, you can see the wounds from his earlier crash. He's been treated by the doctor. That's what the white powder is.
Well, poor old Mark, but at least he continues in the race. The leader's ahead by 4 minutes 15 seconds now as they head towards the tumble, and that's where Richard is.
Well, this is it, the tumble, the only first category climb on the Tour. Just look at the crowds up here. The roadsides lined with cars and people. This is the climb that the riders have been talking about since the race rolled out of Dundee at the start of the week. This is where we thought the Tour might be won and lost. Perhaps not now by Martin Early. Robert Miller blown the Tour apart on this stage today, and he need only really preserve a minute or so of the advantage that he currently has at the finish here to ensure that he wins the race in Westminster tomorrow. Let's go back and rejoin Phil.
Looking down the hairpin bend, that's where we are on the climb of the tumble, the steepest climb of this year's race. And the leading gap is coming to us now, and we're in for a surprise, Paul. 11 minutes, 38 seconds. No one could have predicted this today.
Well, especially Kelly and Early. They should never have let the gap go away this part far. It looks now as if Nico Verhoeven's struggling a bit. He hasn't contributed at all, and he's not the best climber in the world, but Robert Miller is one of the best climbers in the world, and he's getting on with the pace setting at the front.
Well, there's a gradient sign on the other side, said low gear now, and Nico Verhoeven has gotten on lower down than what he's on at the moment, and he's still losing contact with these 2 angels of the mountains, as they like to call them, because Gianetti, King of the Mountains in this race last year, an early leader indeed in the King of the Mountains competition in the Tour de France this year, and now following Robert Miller, and I think following is going to be the word, because Miller looks extremely determined.
This is quite often a tactic adopted by climbers. They'll let another climber set the pace, and Miller's quite happy to set his own pace at the front here. As we go back to the bunch, here at the front of the bunch, there's still no reaction. Martin Early on the right-hand side.
Just behind Martin in yellow is Phil Anderson. On the far left is Chris Walker, and tucked in behind them all there was Sean Kelly. But they didn't look to me to be putting their backs into it, and they must be concerned now. The good move has come from Robert Miller. He's attacked a long way before the tumble. If he'd attacked nearer the tumble, he may not have been given his head, because the riders would have jumped after him straight away. But it's a gamble which I think Miller has obviously rehearsed in his own mind today. He had a plan.
Well, he may well have done. He was very quiet. He never says anything, but that's the best thing to do, because on the climb, Miller would have been too watched, too protected, and nobody would have wanted to let him get away. But now, with the run into Cardiff that we've got, it's going to be very difficult for Martin Early and Sean Kelly to chase him down, because they've got hardly any teammates left.
So all the pressures have swung off, in fact, Robert Miller, and onto the shoulders of Martin Early, the leader of this race, by a handful of seconds for the last couple of days. And now he is looking at an enormous gap of almost 12 minutes. And it's all down to the effort of this one rider, because it's fair to say that the Gianetti cannot contribute, and Nico Verhoeven, of course, is now already 2 minutes behind these 2 riders on the climb of the tumble. The backdrop there of the Sugarloaf Mountain, as we look down now from our helicopter at what is the most sensational stage we have ever known in the Kellogg's Tour of Britain. Robert Miller has come out in such determined mood from Birmingham today, and he has flown. He's on the tumble and working now for the yellow jersey. And you know, Paul, if he gets a yellow jersey today, he's never led a major race in Britain, his own country, since he left for France in 1980.
No, he hasn't. Joey McLaughlin and Malcolm Elliott have won all the major stage races in the Great Britain, but Robert Miller has never won one of them, and I think he dearly would like to get his name on the final standings.
Well, this is the chasing group, and they're looking a little bit disconsolate here because you've got Luc Leblanc setting the pace, Ronan Ponsek here on the left, who's not going to assist at all. He's Miller's teammate. And on the far side, I wonder what's going through the mind now of Martin Early, who is seeing that yellow jersey tarnish on the climb of the tumble. Sean Kelly in the white, Phil Anderson, easily recognisable by his flowing locks, and looking as though he's climbing within himself. But they're certainly not pushing the pace, and you can't say that of Robert Miller. Just enjoy the pictures for a moment. So Robert Miller forcing the pace up the climb of the tumble. You can see all the parked cars. There is an enormous crowd on the mountain. I think this is the biggest we've seen on this climb, and the crowds today have been the biggest of the tour. Towards the top now, Robert Miller goes up a gear, probably off a 22 sprocket to his 19 as he starts to lift the pace a little bit. Gianetti probably relieved this climb is over, and very relieved that the mountains, all bar one, are now behind them. Well, I have to say I spoke to Robert Miller earlier this morning before the start in Birmingham, and I did suggest to him he was the best climber in the world.
I don't know about being the world's best climber, but I have pretty average form, so I think it'll be difficult for me to do anything today.
It just shows you, Paul, doesn't it? You can never believe any of them, can you?
Well, no, but I don't think even Robert could believe this gap, 10 minutes 48, as they're now on the descent of the tumble. And Gianetti, now that they've got over the climb, is doing his turn to help Miller to build up on that breakaway lead.
So the long descent, and Miller lying off Gianetti. It looks to me as though Gianetti is the more fearless of the two on the way down. As we go down the mountain to the chasers, a small group got away here now. Leblanc on the right, Phil Anderson and Martin Early. And in fact, I think if we get a glimpse back, this group is about 5 strong. Leblanc has gone clear. A nice acceleration, typical of a good climber that. Lifts the pace just long enough to open the gap, then back into his rhythm. There's Kelly, Anderson, Early, and I think that's Patrick Robit, the newcomer from the Domex team. And I'm not too sure what the tactics are here, Paul, by the PDM team car, but they're in fact blocking the road for their own riders.
Well, I think what he's tried to do is come back because the gap is so big from the front group to this group. He wants to come back and talk to Kelly and Early, and he couldn't do a 3-point turn because there are so many spectators.
I can't believe that. Anyway, we're still on the climb of the tumble. This is the group now racing for 4th place over the climb. Ronan Ponsek setting the pace, Paul Curran now in 2nd place, and I think that is Michel Derni's with him. So they're a little bit behind the previous 5 we've just seen, and you can see now how the field has split up, really for the first time in this week's race, and they're right across the mountain. There's the defending champion, Malcolm Elliott, hanging on in there and actually looking as though he's climbing quite well. Back up with the leaders now, who are behind the 3 already on the way down, of course. This is the race for 4th place, Sean Kelly. He's going to score well again, and this will give him the overall win in the King of the Mountains competition. Robit there, Leblanc, Martin Early. Concentration written on all of their faces, but there is still no real effort here being made to close that big gap, and time is running out.
Well, it's going to be difficult to chase down that gap as well, because there's only Martin Early and Sean Kelly here. If it was a 15 or 20-man group, then they could organise themselves in the valleys. But with just 2 riders in the front and these 5 behind, it's going to be very difficult to bridge that gap of 10 minutes.
Well, the PDM team from Holland are the leaders in the World Cup competition this year. They won the team prize in the Tour de France, and now we're seeing them put under pressure by the Scot, Robert Miller. Over the top then, Kelly gets 4th, Robit will be 5th, Leblanc, Early, and this is Guido Winterberg now, who's latched on to the back of them. And there's the result over the top. Robert Miller from Gianetti, then a gap to Verhoeven of about 2 minutes, and then Sean Kelly bringing over the chasing group. Back now with Robert Miller, who is keeping the pace nicely. He's kept up with Gianetti after the descent. We're now on our way towards the final climb of this year's race, Caerphilly Hill, out of the town famous for its castle and famous for its cheese. And this is Nico Verhoeven going against the race. The motorcycle marshals are going the right way. Verhoeven has turned round in the road and in fact has gone back to try and assist Martin Early and Sean Kelly, and here they are.
Well, Phil, in all my experience as a professional cyclist, I've never seen that happen. It's the most amazing thing to do, but the gap is so big between the front group and this group that that's the only thing he could do to get back in and help Martin Early and Sean Kelly as quickly as possible.
these two Irishmen, Paul, they just won't believe what's happened to them today with that gap opening. There's Verhoeven now, their teammate, come back to see if he can help. But he, of all the people, know just how far it is up to these two riders, and he knows it's an awful long way. We're on the last climb now of Caerphilly Mountain. Roger Leger encouraging Robert Miller to attack, and he's put the pressure on a little bit, and he's got Gianetti in trouble.
Well, Gianetti really is slumping a little bit over the handlebars. It looks as if Miller was getting a little gap. Back here, Martin Early's on the front, setting the pressure, trying to defend his yellow jersey to the maximum. Patrick Robit there on his wheel, letting Early do all the work.
Well, Robit in the blue is such a tall rider for a climber. You don't see good climbers who are quite so tall normally. There's where we are on the right, where the red spot is, and as you can see, the crowd has come out now to watch the big kill in the Kellogg's Tour of Britain, and they're seeing the Scotsman Robert Miller alone in the lead now, and he has the cushion of something like 8 or 9 minutes still over that chasing group. Over the top of the last climb of the Kellogg's Tour, Robert Miller is in the lead, and the crowd are loving it. We can look down at the lonely figure of Miller. Gianetti is only just behind there, by the way. This is the group, and visibly going slower. Martin Early almost resigned to losing that yellow jersey now. This is Luc Leblanc, Sean Kelly and Guido Winterberg. They're detached at the back just a little bit, but we're almost at the top of the climb. Kelly is now beginning to look, for the first time in this race, Paul, tired.
Well, Kelly's done an awful lot today. He did that little move earlier on in the morning when he built up a lead of 2 minutes. He's been working for Early all the time, and it really does look as if he's given his all.
So it's left now to the yellow jersey to defend the colour himself, as the crowd try to encourage him to make that final effort. But time is running out now. They can see Cardiff from the top of this hill. As the crow flies, it's about 4 miles. But of course, once we get there, there's still 3 finishing circuits of the city to come. So if only Martin Early can close down this enormous gap, there'll still be a chance tomorrow in Westminster. There's the King of the Mountains result of the climb. Robert Miller, Gianetti, Martin Early, Patrick Robit coming in 4th place. Now we can have a look at the final standing. Sean Kelly, the winner of this section of the race. Martin Early is 2nd, and Nick Barnes, because of his long breakaway on the road from Dundee, finishes 3rd. Back up now with Robert Miller, who's over the top of the climb. He's descending now through Thornhill. Welcome to Cardiff, the sign says. And Robert says, thanks, I'm from Scotland, and I am leading this race now by so many minutes. Surely the yellow jersey will be mine. Well, Robert Miller is still having to contend with Gianetti, who has descended well. He's come back, so 2 riders heading down to Cardiff. Join us after the break. The end of the long road from Birmingham today of 140 miles. Cardiff Castle is ready and waiting for these 2 riders who have written themselves into the history books today of the Kellogg's Tour of Britain. Gianetti in the front, and Robert Miller heading now, he hopes, for the yellow jersey, unless on this finishing circuit here Gianetti manages to slip in, Paul, because overall they're only separated by 8 seconds.
Well, they're only separated by that small amount, but I think Robert Miller has already waited for Gianetti because he dropped him on the climb earlier, and Miller knows there's still 15 miles to do on the flat, so maybe Gianetti's been suffering a little bit, so I think Robert probably feels quite confident.
And the TV time sprint coming up now. They're not contesting it, not surprisingly. Miller crosses the line first, Gianetti 2nd. But in fact, Gianetti's collected so many points today in this long breakaway with Miller of almost 70 miles now that he will probably be up in the top 3 in that competition tonight. In the streets of Cardiff now, still Martin Early chases, and this group of 5 still persist on the chase. 2nd place, Kelly, and 3rd place there, Luc Leblanc.
But they're going to have a very difficult chance to pull back any time at all on Robert Miller on the finishing circuit now, because it's 2 men against 2 men. 2 men riding in the front, and here only Martin Early and Sean Kelly actually contributing to the work. Guido Winterberg is in the same team as Gianetti, and the other 2 riders won't want to contribute because these 2 riders here, Martin Early, one of them, and Sean Kelly, have got the most to lose.
So let's have a look then at the sprint results that we've just seen. Robert Miller wins from Gianetti, and Martin Early here gets the 3rd place. So the 2 riders in that chase group from PDM, nobody wants to help them now. I'm afraid that's what life is like in professional cycling. You get the glory when you win, and you have to do all the work when you're losing. Robert Miller is now certainly not losing. He's racing to his finest victory in the British Isles. He looks over his shoulder, and Gianetti still willing to help him, because the Helvetia, a Swiss team which Gianetti rides for, is in a very good position here, because they could also be taking the overall lead in the team race tonight. But look at this now, Miller's going to have a go at Gianetti for the finish. Miller is going to give him some stick here, but he's not going to get it. Gianetti takes it on the line. Miller is second, but there was no time difference, so Robert Miller will be the man in yellow tonight. And just 1 day to go to the finish. Well, the 5 chasers have been caught. Kelly and Early are in the bunch here. This is now the sprint for 3rd place, and Malcolm Elliott takes it clearly from Remick Stumpf. So the man in green is beaten by Elliott this time, who, by the way, was in the yellow jersey at this stage of the race last year. Here's the finish once more. Gianetti wins by half a length from Robert Miller. Malcolm Elliott is 3rd, Stumpf 4th, Dernies 5th.
Well, Robert, that really was quite a day's racing. You weren't in the best of spirits this morning, but you produced some ride.
Yeah, well, I got a bit of good news last night, so instead of going home, I thought I would give it a try. And it went okay today.
Let's just dissect that a little bit. You were thinking about going home, were you? What, yesterday?
Yeah, I wasn't very happy with the way things were going in the race, and I had a few personal problems, so I thought I would go home, and then since there wasn't a plane to go home on, I decided to stay. And I don't think it all looked so good if I'd went home in the middle of the race. I mean, the organisers bring me over to try and ride well, and I did my best today.
Can I tempt you into telling me a little bit about that good news?
No, I can't say, but I think it'll all break open pretty soon. It's to do with the team for next year, and at the moment I'm under a negotiation with them, so it puts me in a better position if I can win here.
Now listen, it comes down to the sprint tomorrow. If you stay on his wheel that close, you'll win it. That's not bad for a rider who I don't think wanted to be here at the outset, and as you've just admitted, very nearly went home part way through.
Yeah, it's not so bad. It gives the team a little bit of good news for this month, because last month we didn't have a good day, a good time. So maybe September will be our month.
He doesn't give much away, does he, Robert Miller? And he has 8 seconds now, his advantage over Gianetti. And it'll all come down to the race tomorrow in Westminster. Martin Early's 3rd, Stumpf is 4th, and Malcolm Elliott is now in 5th place overall, but over 4 minutes behind.
Oh my goodness me, what a stage. Nobody could have predicted that, could they? Mauro Gianetti and Robert Miller quite literally exploding into Cardiff. Miller, a rider in some turmoil earlier in the week, but a good deal happier now. So too is Mark Walsham. We saw him come off his bike chasing TV Times sprints points on the way into Hereford. Well, Mark is all right, but this sport, as you witness here, these pictures of Walsham, not just about glamour, these riders every now and again quite literally spill blood. Join us tomorrow if you can. It's going to be quite some finish on the streets of Westminster. 62 miles around some of the most famous streets in the capital. And a quick word about the police tonight. Many, many thanks to them. They've guided us through Dundee, the cities, the towns and the villages, right the way through here to Cardiff, and it couldn't have happened without them. Join us on the streets tomorrow in Westminster if you can. If not, 5:20 here on Channel 4. Bye-bye now.